Welcome to the East Ward Update. I'm Durwin Montgomery, Council Member of the East Ward. On this month's show, we'll be discussing the process to create the 2014-2015 budget. My guest is Assistant City Manager Ben Rao. Ben, welcome to the show. It's not your first time here. Been here a few times, and we've talked about several matters, but today we're going to talk about the budget.
Thank you, Councilmember Montgomery. Glad to be here.
So let's just jump head in. What do we create a budget for in the first place?
Well, the purpose of a budget basically is to create the spending plan for City of Winston-Salem government. We estimate how much we're going to receive in income every year from property taxes, sales taxes, state and federal resources, and then develop a spend plan to allocate those funds to meet the various needs of the city, to provide funding for the services that the citizens have asked for.
And so for a city like us, City of Winston-Salem, on average, you say over the last 5 years on average, what does our annual budget look like? How much money is that?
Well, the total budget, if you look at the current year budget, is about $380 million. Now, the one fund that we focus the most on is what's called our general fund, which accounts for your core municipal services such as police, fire, sanitation, recreation, streets maintenance. And that budget totals about $175 million.
And so what does $380 million get you?
Well, it gives you a wide variety of sources. A municipal government is really a very diverse service organization, so you receive the services that I just mentioned that are accounted for in the general fund, but in addition to that, you also receive water and sewer services. We maintain our stormwater drainage system as part of the budget. The City of Winston-Salem also has a number of public assembly facilities like the Winston-Salem Fairgrounds, the Convention Center, Bowman Gray Stadium, and we also fund our public bus system through that budget.
And so, a lot of people may look at that number and think if it's a lot of money, and it is a lot of money, and really try to look at what are we getting and what are we not getting. And I know that for the major part, the majority of the budget is labor intensive, particularly when you look at a couple areas within our police department and fire department make up a pretty large chunk of spending within our budget.
Yes, sir. Being a service organization, the largest portion of the budget is in personnel costs. As you mentioned, police, fire, our sanitation department, our regional water and sewer system. So that's correct. Most of our costs are in personnel.
And we'll ask a question around this, and since we've been having some dialogue here recently around the potential of having a bond vote in November. Some people may ask the question, well, if you're going to spend $380 million within your budget, why don't you just spend that money then on the bond? Why can't we do that?
Well, based on the income that the city receives every year and the scope of the projects, the scope of the needs that we're looking at, there's just not enough annual income coming into the city budget to really fund those types of needs. In addition, what we're looking at with those unfunded needs are long-term projects that we expect to have a useful life for many, many years. And so it makes more sense to really finance those improvements over a long period of time through a bond referendum or other forms or other long-term types of financing.
Right. And so, Ben, this is your second budget as in this role?
Yes, sir.
And so, but you've had how many years of experience here with us?
About 18.
18 years. And so looking into this budget year, what are some of the challenges that we're going to be facing?
Well, the greatest challenge that we're facing this year is really on the resource side of the budget. Last summer, the General Assembly passed legislation that excluded what's called custom software from taxation. Custom software would be the software that a company has developed for its specific business needs. So sometimes we call it proprietary software. A lot of your data centers would have that type of software. So the General Assembly passed legislation that excluded that. Winston-Salem has a number of data centers or a number of operations that have custom software. The Forsyth County Tax Office has estimated that the value of that software ranges between $300 to $400 million. And so when you translate that into property tax revenue for the city, that's anywhere from $1.6 to $2.1 million of lost revenue that we would experience as a result of the exclusion of this software from the tax base. So really going into this year, we always do projections of our revenues and we look at what our expenses might be. And we're looking at about a $2.4 million gap going into the budget year, and that's mainly due to the exclusion of custom software from taxation.
And that was an act, again, by the General Assembly.
Yes, sir.
and why is it that something that happens in the General Assembly affects us?
Well, in this particular case, I think that the General Assembly, as part of its overall tax reform efforts, was looking to make North Carolina as a state more competitive. But in this case, by excluding something that the city does levy taxes for, it obviously hurts our coffers.
Right. And so as we continue to look at how we'll get through this challenge, one might ask the question, well, why don't you just cut something? Or why don't you just increase on another side or decrease on that side? It's really not that easy when you're looking at the budget, because again, as you said, it's about the resources and making sure you have the dollars available to cover those things that pretty much the citizens have come to expect as a standard. And in the same vein, have we seen any growth within property taxes and sales taxes here within the last year?
Well, we are seeing slow improvement after the end of the recession. Sales taxes sometimes can be a little challenging to project because of how refunds are credited back to non-taxable organizations. But we're seeing a little bit of an uptick there. In terms of the property tax base, if we didn't have the exclusion of custom software from the tax base, the base would actually have gone up 1.5%. So we would have experienced growth in the tax base if this exclusion had not been approved.
Okay. So what are we going to have to do? What are we looking at? What are some things that are important to us as we look at this budget season, as we see what some of the challenges are? What are some of those things that are important for us to take a look at as we go through this process?
Yes, sir. So we were facing a $2.4 million gap going into our process. We do try to focus on a number of goals, and one of them is to maintain the current level of service, to provide the services that the citizens expect, so we weren't looking to reduce any service levels. At the same time, we were also trying to maintain competitive employee compensation, and so we have looked at trying to include a merit pay increase in the budget, and also try to account for the fact that a number of our employees, about 80% of our employees, are behind the market in terms of their pay, and so there is also a modest market pay adjustment in the budget.
Why is that important in terms of the market?
Well, it's important that we want to retain quality employees first and foremost, but then we also want to attract quality employees to the city organization. And so we know that we've gone the last several years with modest pay adjustments. In a couple years, no pay adjustments at all. So we know that we've gotten behind the market. And so we felt like that this was a year where we needed to take a look at that. We know with some position classifications that the voluntary turnover rate, the turnover that results from just people deciding to leave the city organization, for some position classifications that's over 10%. So we felt like that we did have some issues there, and so we are attempting to address some of that in the budget. We're not bringing everybody up to market rates, but we're trying to at least move in that direction.
Okay. There was also something I was very interested in as we were even looking at that whole market process. And it was something that I've mentioned to yourself, and even had discussion with city manager, and even mentioned as we've had the briefings in finance committee. But particularly as we look at pay, particularly at some of our lowest paid employees, about how do we adjust those salaries specifically to help bring them up to what would be considered a livable wage here in the city of Winston-Salem.
Yes, sir. So one position classification that we've been concerned about would be like a light equipment operator position. So a position where somebody has to earn a commercial driver's license to be able to do the job. What we've seen is we've hired those people into those positions. They've received the training, they've earned the CDL, and then they've left the city organization for higher paying jobs. There, the pay difference there is significant. The turnover rate, I think, is right around 17%. So we know that there's a challenge there. But in addition, part of the market pay adjustment proposal is to increase the minimum hourly rate for city employees, to increase it from $9 an hour to $10.10 an hour. So that would impact your custodial staff, a lot of your seasonal recreation employees, those types of positions.
Right. And as we look at continuing to walk through this process and getting to a place of actually where budget is presented and formed, we still will have more work to be done in that process as well.
That's correct. That's correct. And I would say, to add to what is in the budget proposal, in order to address the challenge that we face with the custom software exclusion, we are proposing a 1 cent increase in the tax rate that would basically offset that lost revenue. So that would increase the tax rate from 53 cents to 54 cents.
And for an average household, what are we thinking about in terms of what they're going to be paying more?
Well, for a house valued at $100,000, that would basically be $10 a year.
And even with that same sense, on the other side of that, what does that 1 cent actually bring in? How much revenue does one cent on the property tax bring in?
1 cent would generate about $1.9 million, so almost exactly what we're losing from this custom software exclusion.
Right. Okay. And so, as I said before, it's important as we look at the shape of the budget, what's in the budget, why we're even dealing with the issue of having a shortfall, particularly because of the fact that there is the exclusion on software that was passed down from the General Assembly. As we move forward in this process, we're going to be looking at a proposed budget that will come from the city manager's office, and he'll recommend a budget out, that'll be published out, and then council will begin to take on that process. And when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about that, and we're going to talk about the ways that the public can lend their voice to this budget process.
For the best in locally grown farm-fresh meats, fruits, and vegetables, shop the Dixie Classic Fair Farmers Market. This year, we're celebrating the market's 40th anniversary with special events and contests. And don't miss the $20 challenge every second and fourth Saturday through September. Chef Nikki has just $20 to buy and prepare a complete meal for 4 right there in the market. It's the Dixie Classic Fair Farmers Market, open every Saturday, year-round, 6 to 1 at the Winston-Salem Fairgrounds. The Dixie Classic Fair Farmers Market, a Winston-Salem tradition since 1974.
This is the Winston-Salem Police Department telling you that we have implemented a strategic plan to combat texting while driving. We want our residents to remain safe while on our roads and highways. One text or call could wreck it all.
Welcome back to the East Ward Update. As I was just mentioning with you, Ben, that we'll have the city manager will produce or submit out his proposed budget. And as that is submitted, it will be given to council, it will be out for public consumption and view, and then council will start their process, particularly at the Finance Committee, will start the process of review. There'll be some additional meetings that go on to really walk through that budget and see from a council perspective what those things are. And at the end of the day, it then becomes, as city manager says, it becomes the council's budget as we put a stamp on it or change things or shift some things around. And so there's opportunity for engagement with the public in that process, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. In fact, on the screen, we have the calendar for the budget review process this year. The city manager will be submitting his budget to the city council on Thursday, May 22nd, so this coming Thursday. Starting on May 29th, the Finance Committee will hold the first of 4 budget workshops to go through the budget in detail. In addition to that, they will be holding a public hearing on June the 5th, and then the City Council, the full City Council, is scheduled to consider the budget for approval on June 16th. Prior to that, there will be an opportunity, there will be an additional public hearing. So there will be 2 public hearings associated with the budget, and then there will be the 4 Finance Committee workshops. In addition to that, the Public Safety Committee will be reviewing the budgets for police, fire, and emergency management. All of these meetings are open to the public, so citizens can attend and hear the deliberations about the budget.
And in all these meetings, there can be potential recommended changes to the budget that will, at the end of the day, have to be approved by the entire council, correct?
Yes, sir.
And so as we look at the different pieces of this puzzle and putting it all together, there's going to be adequate opportunity for individuals to be able to participate. And if they can't make it to that physical meetings, or if they're watching at home these meetings, are there other ways for them to be able to get their opinions in?
Yes, sir. There are a number of ways. When the budget is submitted on the 22nd, a copy of the budget will be placed at all the library branches within the city. We're also planning to put copies of the budget at all the recreation centers within the city, so there'll be opportunities for citizens to go and read through the budget. We'll also have it posted on the city website. In terms of feedback, citizens will have the opportunity to post comments on the city's website, also through our Facebook and Twitter pages, and also by contacting the city via phone and leaving comments on the citizen feedback line.
And so again, there's the fact that the public has plenty of opportunity to be engaged in this process, and that's one thing that's important to myself, and I believe it's important to other council members, is that the public feels like they have the opportunity to be engaged. I know I just had a town hall meeting, and I know you were able to share with some of the citizens there this same schedule and about what we're facing with this budget this year. And again, I think those are important things for the public to understand, because at the end of the day, these are public dollars, and the public needs to understand, one, the process that we've come to in actually formulating a budget, and then the fact that they've had an opportunity to participate in the process of actually developing this budget. And then as we move forward and approve that budget, you know, we have critiques of whether or not we're spending the dollars properly and correct. Good, bad, or indifferent, I think that's the way that government should work, where there's opportunity for people to be engaged in that process. And so this is a process that I think that you've experienced on many occasions, and council has had an opportunity to continue to work through this budget process, but it's oftentimes a strenuous time because it puts in perspective how we'll move forward for at least the next year, correct?
That's correct. That's correct. It is a very much a balancing act, you know, a series of trade-offs between, you know, priorities in terms of the type of services we want to provide and how we allocate, you know, our limited resources. So it's very much a intensive process.
Right. And so again, Ben, I thank you, because you've helped shepherd this process in terms of the budget through and forward, and having to, again, as you said, balance all of those things that's coming forward, and working with the city manager and the rest of the directors to really come in and look at each one of their areas and say, as they present to you all, these are priorities, these are things that we need to do, and then having to put those in perspective to say, okay, these are things that we can do. Those are things that we as council, I know I can speak for, to say that we truly respect and are thankful to have a good team of individuals that can help bring this process forward. And so we're getting ready to pull our sleeves up and dive into our workshops and begin to look at this, and we'll be looking at how we can continue to participate with community, with staff as we move forward. But again, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for watching the East Ward Update. I'm Daryl Montgomery. Remember, you can see this show in its entirety on the city's YouTube channel. You can also get more information on the city's budget on our website, www.cityofws.org. Again, thank you for watching.